Okay, continuing on with the Cub Cadet GTX2100. Today I'm going to give it a tune-up, the engine. And when I say tune-up, I'm going to be changing the oil and the oil filter, the fuel filter, and we're going to put 2 new plugs in it. The tractor's got a little over 200 hours. I have no idea how old the oil might be or any of the filters. Of course, this fuel filter looks pretty gross and it's probably perhaps the original. But with fresh oil, fresh fuel filter, and brand new plugs in it, I will be happy with going forward, and I'll know when all of that's been done, and then I'll know by the hour meter when it's due the next time. So let's get started. And so here are the maintenance intervals for the GTX 2100. We've got oil change 100 hours. Like I said, now I got 210, so assuming it was done 100 hours, it's due, or maybe it has just been done. I'm not sure. Oil filter 200 hours. We're going to do that. Clean the air filter. We can do that. Replace the air filter. We're not going to quite do that yet. We're going to put new plugs in it at 200 hours. We're going to put a new fuel filter in it at 200 hours. And we've already cleaned the engine. So we're about due for all of this stuff, and for all I know it had just been done, but I don't know, so I'm doing it. Okay, so to drain the oil in this, the engine's got a hose that looks like this, so we'll just unscrew this and put the hose down here and just let the engine oil drain, and then we'll take off the oil filter. So let's get that cap off of that hose. Okay, so I've slid an oil drain pan underneath here, and we're going to unplug this hose, and this hose has a 3/4 inch and then a 7/16. And so that's the cap that's going to come off. Okay, we're going to let that drain out. Alright, I'm going to see if I can tip the mower a little bit and get the engine tipped so that the oil's heading towards the drain plug. And just a little like that. Like to get all the oil out that we can. And this oil filter is supposed to be hand tight. So let's see if we can get this off. Okay, this filter is supposed to be on here hand tight. Somebody gorillaed the thing on here. So I'm going to just use a wrench to break it loose. There we go. I really think that filter just needs to be spun on there. Not much more than hand tight. Okay, we're still draining out here. Cleaned everything here, so I don't want to make a mess. It's going to continue to drip out of there apparently. I can wipe that up later. Still dripping a little bit, so we're going to just let it drip. Okay, we've let that drain for a while now. I think we're good. I'm going to plug this back up. Just the way we took it out. I mean, there's no oil pressure in this hose, so while it looks like it spins and it's not very tight, I don't recall it leaking oil. So I'm just going to put it back the way I found it, and I'll continue to monitor it. If I see it leaking oil, maybe I can revisit and put a hose clamp on it or something. That's all. You don't have to go nuts with it. And the hose kind of pivots down there as well, and maybe that's by design so people can gain access to it without it kinking. Now, I'm tempted to put a hose clamp on that, but then if it doesn't pivot like this, who knows. But anyway, I'm going to clean it all up down here, and then I'll just keep an eye on it after each mow. If I see any oil, then I'll go back and perhaps put a clamp on it, but for right now I'm just going to leave it the way it is. So don't foresee it as being a problem right yet. And the hose goes back there. And that's it for the draining. Pretty cut and dry, pretty simple. Okay, and I'm not sure of the cross-reference. I'm sure there's just an automotive oil filter exactly like this. But I figured I would start with the official one. Part number 1205001-S1. And that was the filter for this engine. So I went with it. I want to say it was about $8 or so. I mean, it wasn't $25 or anything. It was like $8 or $10. And so before I twist on this new filter, I'm just going to make sure there's no grime on this face to get stuck underneath the oil seal and create a leak. Everything looks nice. Put a little bit of oil on that seal with my finger just so it will slide nice and it won't bind and pinch. That's all you need. You should be able to take that off by hand when it's time to change the oil. If you crank it too tight, it squeezes and squishes that seal and distorts it sometimes because there is pressure in here. But just hand tight. I know too many people when they're first starting out, they get out the wrench. I mean, the oil filter wrench is to remove it, not to install it. So we got the oil drained, got the hose plugged back up, we got a new filter on it, and then now we're going to add some oil. Okay, so now we're going to put about 2 quarts in. I'm going to use Valvoline Full Synthetic 10W30. It says it takes just a little under 2 quarts. And we have to remember that the oil filter is empty right now. So we're not going to check the dipstick until after we start it up and let it run. because if you check the dipstick now with the oil filter empty, as soon as you start it, a lot of that oil is going to now fill the fuel filter or oil filter, and you're not going to have as much oil in there as you thought. So we'll fill it nearly 2 quarts, and then after we start it and run it for a second, then we'll check the dipstick. So we're going to underfill it at this point so that we will need to top it off and we can get it exactly where we want it. So there's about a quart and a half or so. And then the cap goes back on. What in the world? And the cap goes on. Oh, okay, yeah, there it is. Alright, next step is to replace this fuel filter. Okay, I'm sure we're going to spill gasoline here, so I moved my oil pan over. And, you know, again, I'm sure the gasoline level is probably above this, so if we unhook this, it'll just start siphoning and pouring out. So I want to pinch this hose. Clamp it with a, just be careful not to damage it. Got one of these little pincher things here. Just to pinch it closed. This is probably not the best wrench for this, but channel locks might work better. Let's see how tight this might be. Well, it's full of gas. Alright, I can see this thing's full of gas. It's not too bad. I'll get this hose off of here without damaging it. Here's where we're going to get more gas. There we go. Okay, that's not too bad. At least it's not siphoning out and flowing. Alright, and again, these are pretty inexpensive parts, so can you see that? So I've went with the Kohler fuel filter for this engine. A little bit smaller than the original one, if that was the original one, I'm not sure, but this is the manufacturer's fuel filter. And it's got an arrow for flow, which way it's going to go. So gas is coming up here and it's going to the engine, so we're going to plug it in this way. Like that. And that was pretty easy. And so now some spark plugs. And so now the plugs, pull the boot off. And be careful, I mean, if this thing is stuck on there and you can't get it out, just be careful if you grab it with a pair of pliers. I mean, if you puncture a hole in this boot, the spark is so powerful it will jump through the boot and onto this shield before it will jump the gap in the cylinder under pressure. So you don't want to really be careful not to puncture these things, because you will get arcing and misfires. What do we got? Long size? Long size. Here's the right size. Alright, here's this plug. I don't know if you can see it, well, that'll focus in. I mean, this plug to me looks like it's brand new. So maybe it was serviced at 200 hours. That's good. I like to see that. I mean, these plugs were $2.99 a piece. So I'm just replacing it regardless, but that plug looks fine to me. Okay, and so here we are. Brand new plug, even better. And these plugs do have a crush washer on them, so the very first time you put them in, it's okay to give it a little bit of a twist, but again, you don't have to go full gorilla on it. And that's that, and I'll go do that on the other side. Oh, damn, look at it. I mean, that house is only 100 yards away. Alright, enough with watching the lightning storm. We're going to get back to work here. I need to start this engine to fill the oil filter with oil, and then I can check the level, top it off to get exactly where I need it. I've got a new fuel filter on it, got 2 new spark plugs in it. So I'm going to start it now. The fuel line is empty, so I'd imagine it's going to take a couple of cranks to get it to fire. And put the choke on. So here we go. Okay, let's check the oil. See that? Just a smidge above the full. Nice, fully synthetic. Good to go. So I think this engine's in good shape now. I've got fresh, fully synthetic oil in there. I've got a new oil filter. It's good for 200 hours. Got a new fuel filter on it. Got new spark plugs in it that are also good for 200 hours. And I've got 210 hours on the tractor. Starts up, runs smooth. The airflow is good. And so that was just a quick tune-up. Pretty basic, pretty simple. I think anybody who attempts it can get it done without any problems. So, until the next thing on this tractor, thanks for watching.